Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're tuning in. Welcome to the now third episode of Not Your Grandma's Advice. So exciting to be here today. As you see, our format is a little different, and that's because we have our first guest. Yeah. Super exciting. Today we have, we got a juicy little episode for you guys today. We are going to be talking about what it means to really be in your villain era and how to set those healthy boundaries. Here we are, and we talked about getting out of that toxicity. Now we're going to talk about how to be in your healthy boundary area. Now that we're getting out of our toxic era, now we're in our healed era. Okay. So with me today, I have my sibling, JR, who is going to help us talk about healthy boundaries and what that looks like for different people. All right. So, JR, go ahead and introduce yourself to the people.
Well, hello. JR, non-binary. I use gender-neutral pronouns. I'm 32 from Chicago, currently living in Texas. Not forever, though. It's just the weather. I love it. I'm very excited to be here today with the greatest sibling in the universe, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. So let's get into it.
Let's get into it. So as I was saying from the last episode, we really talked about how being toxic is not cute anymore. Now that we've talked about not being in your toxic era anymore, and we've talked about how to heal from those behaviors and recognize those behaviors that you have that may not be healthy. Now we're going to give you some tips and we're going to talk about how to make sure that the people around you aren't pulling you back into that toxic environment. Okay. And I know you guys have probably heard on social media and I've seen on TikTok and all these other things, people saying, "Oh, I'm in my villain era. I'm in my villain era." And it's really just learning how to say no. Okay? That doesn't mean that you're in your villain era. That doesn't mean that you're a villain. It just means that you're starting to learn how to set those boundaries and stop being such a people pleaser. And as a former people pleaser myself, them boundaries have made me the badass woman that I am today. Okay? So now that we've learned that being toxic isn't cute, and I hope you've been working on those behaviors since our last episode, now we're going to talk about how to keep the toxicity at bay with those healthy boundaries, okay? So our first question, JR, I have to ask is when did you first start setting boundaries in your life and what scenario made those boundaries necessary?
Man. So I know we've talked about this before, and I have like so many different examples, but the one that I want to bring to this forum today is just a very simple boundary. When I was little, I definitely was like youngest person in the house, and grew up under this ideal that you need to respect your elders, you need to do what your elders are telling you, and saying no was really not a thing. Like I would get in trouble for saying no or for even having some type of resistance. So the earliest that I can remember even setting a boundary to say no, gosh, I was in my teens, like late teens.
Mm-hmm.
um, and even then, when I tell you, it felt so uncomfortable to just say no and really stick to that. Because prior to like really asserting that, like, no, I don't want to do this, or no, I don't want to go there, or no, I don't want to accept this, it was very much like I felt so guilty
Mm-hmm.
and just very uncomfortable with just not, to your point, people pleasing.
Mm-hmm.
So that was probably the earliest that I can remember like setting a boundary, was probably my mid to late teens, just simply saying no. Um, and then from then, I would say like probably in my early to mid 20s is when I had a better understanding. Well, one, I got introduced to and then had a better understanding of what bodily autonomy was. So I
Mm-hmm.
was more assertive about like telling people, you have to ask me before you touch me. Like you can't just Can't just come up to me, hug me, dap me, none of that. If there's going to be any kind of bodily contact, I don't care about the air smooches, fist bump,
Yes.
none of that.
Yeah.
Just please don't touch me unless I've okayed it already. And it's not something that's implied because we're quote unquote friends or we're lovers or we're family. Like, no, this is my body and you
Mm-hmm.
can't touch me if I don't want you to. So those are the
Definitely.
two things that I can think of. But as you can see, a little later in life than
Right.
most people would think that that would happen.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Honestly, that is something that we're similar in when it comes to bodily autonomy. The whole touching people just because you're familiar with them, we have to stop doing that, okay?
mm.
I don't want you touching on me, all right? And my family, I love them down, love them to death, but they also understand you get a hug when I come in, you get a hug when I come out. All that laid up, cuddling with each other, holding hands, hugging, smooching. I don't want it. I don't want it. And I have been fortunate enough to have a family that respects my boundaries, but not every family is like that. And my family wasn't always like that as well. I remember the first time I had told my dad stop touching me so much, and I felt that guilt, like you were speaking for,
Mm.
well, our dad. But
Yes, we
I
have the
felt
same father,
we
people.
have the same father. Yeah. So our
And we
dad,
know that man.
know him, very
We know
familiar
him
with him,
very well.
love him down. Um, but I remember being, I think in high school,
Mm.
and I wore these slick back ponytails all the time because I was just learning my natural hair. Because all middle school, I was straightening my hair all the time. So I was really
Mm.
proud of my slick backs, you know. And he would kiss me on the forehead. He would, give me hugs and he would rest his chin on my head. And as much as I love my family, I love my dad 100%. If you're watching this, shout out to you. But sometimes I just don't want to be touched, especially, I hate to say it, if you're messing up my hair. Okay, I spent a lot of time doing this, and now your beard is on the top of my head, and my slick back not slick back no more.
Yeah.
Okay, and I remember the first time I finally just said, like, can you stop touching me so much, please? So many times throughout the day. I beg. And I
I
don't know if
beg.
I said it like that because that's how I talk now. I don't really know how I said it then, but I felt that guilt because he looked hurt. And I could tell he was hurt because, he just wants to love on his child. And fair enough. I was the youngest, the last one up in the house. But he respected it. And that's a big thing. It also goes to show that no matter what age you are, you can set a boundary and you can respect a boundary, right?
Mhm.
So, not everybody was so willing to respect my boundaries as I was setting them growing up. And JR talked about their first experience setting boundaries. My first experience setting boundaries was also telling people to stop touching me. I never really was a big fan of the touching unless I like had a crush on you or something. Like if I had a crush
Fair.
on you, I always wanted to be up under you, right? So like my man now, he can touch on me, but that came out wrong. But y'all know what I meant. Like
Y'all have an agreement
we have an
that
agreement.
touching is okay.
But he also sometimes when it's too much, that whole like just rubbing one part of my body, I'm like, please stop doing that. Just stay there if you're gonna be there. All right.
No, that's for real. Like sometimes
Yeah.
my partner and I will be cuddling and then like he'll rub a certain part of me, like, maybe rubbing on my arm or my back or something. And I'll be like, baby, I really love you, but that's too overstimulating. Please stop.
Too overstimulated. And that could be the tism talking, but
I'm
I feel
pretty
like
sure it
we're
is.
not alone in that feeling that sometimes you don't want certain people to touch you or don't want them to touch you in certain ways. And one of my biggest ones where I started feeling comfortable to even tell my own father, like, please stop touching me so much,
Mm.
was because teachers in school, like,
Mm.
they always felt like they had to like touch you on your shoulder or like lean over you to read your paper or something. And it's like, I know you're trying to show like this paternal like figure while we're here at school. I know you're trying to be comforting, but really it just feels weird. Like, so it started with telling my teachers, like, can you give me some space? Can you back up a little bit? Please
It's
don't
actually
touch
kind
me
of
when you pass
funny
me.
that we have like the opposite of that because I
Mm-hmm.
was too touchy with my teachers when I initially entered high
Mm-hmm.
school. Like
Mm-hmm.
very much trying to be like up under them, like I'm their little daughter at the
Mm-hmm.
school. They call me up to the front of the class and I'm presenting something and I've done well. I'm like trying to give them hugs and stuff. And
In high
it
school?
yeah, in high school.
Oh,
It took,
Lord.
I want to say this was like my survey lit teacher, and for the life of me, I can't remember her name anymore. She was obviously not that important to me, but
Mm-hmm.
but I do remember like, you know, having to come up and doing like a presentation or some kind of oral presentation in class or whatever. And I come up to the front of the class and I distinctly remember like trying to like give her a hug and not like full body, you know, hug or whatever, but like I tried to put my arm around her and like pull her close to me. And
Mm-hmm.
she like very politely just don't do that.
That's
And
me with
after
my kids now.
class, and like I could totally see that. But after class, she like pulled me to the side for a moment and she was like, hey, you know, you like to touch a little bit too much. And for me, that makes me uncomfortable. But she had a whole nother like reason for wanting to talk to me. And I don't fully remember all of the conversation, but I'm pretty sure it had something to do with her understanding that I was traumatized and that I thought touching was necessary,
Right.
even though it obviously wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say like high school, like when I was like a teenager, that's when I realized like, oh, you can tell people no. If somebody doesn't want to like be touched, or if I don't want to be touched, I can just tell them that it's not a problem.
Lessons, lessons.
Man, teachers
Yes.
do not always teach from the curriculum, okay?
Hey, hey. Yes, honestly, it's interesting that your teacher had that conversation with you because I be trying to have that conversation with my kids. I have one, she's a hugger. She's a hugger, and I still don't like physical contact, even when it's coming from an adorable little child. I please get off of me.
Like you're sweet kid, but
You're
please.
so sweet, but please release me. And I think having a formal conversation to say setting a boundary, no matter what the age, I just said it earlier, it doesn't matter what the age, how old or how young you are, you can set a boundary, you can respect a boundary. So it doesn't matter that that girl is 12. You
Yeah,
know, it doesn't matter that she's 11. It doesn't matter if they're 6 and they're your actual like child, because I'm talking about my students.
yeah.
But if that's a boundary, honestly, that's probably a nice conversation to have. It talks about boundaries early and it starts teaching them about consent, which is something we definitely need to teach our kids more, but that's a whole nother
Absolutely.
conversation for a whole nother day. Okay. But I kind of wanted to talk about how people started reacting when you started setting boundaries regularly. You know, when we get comfortable with telling people no, and not just those boundaries as well, but simple things like right now, my biggest one is don't message me outside of work hours. That's a boundary.
Mm,
How
and an
do people
important one.
react? An important one. How do people react once you started setting those boundaries?
Oof. I'm going to take this in three parts
Mhm.
because I like group relationships into three little buckets, right? You have familial relationships, you have your platonic friendships, and then you have your romantic partnerships. And initially, when I started to just straight up say no to people, the
Mhm.
hardest people to do that with were people in the family. So my familial relationships and my romantic partnerships.
Mhm.
Um, for family, it was because again, I was the youngest person in the house. So whatever eldest says goes. And if the eldest wants to give me a hug or is hosting a function and there's family over and they come to greet me and I don't want to give them hugs and kisses, now I'm looked at like I'm crazy and
Mhm.
I'm ostracized in a way.
Hurt.
And when it came to like romantic partnerships, because I had been so like open and willing to allow people to, well, seemingly willing to
Mhm.
allow people to touch me, once I started saying no, they were like, so you don't mess with me no more. I'm like, it's not that.
Why is that always, whenever you're setting a boundary in a romantic relationship, why is it always, oh, you don't rock with me no more, or we not on the same level? Like,
Like,
Why is it
no.
always that? Yes,
Like
yes.
it's not that at all. It's just that I've finally realized that I want to be touched when I'm okay with it. And
Mm-hmm.
even though I'm okay with you as a person, if I don't want to be touched right now, you don't have the right to touch me.
That part.
And that's just
Yes.
is what it is. So the people that, you know, romantic partnerships and family who didn't respect that, to this day, I'm very quick to cut people off.
To this day.
To this day. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
there's people that I had been friends with at that time who I would, I would say no, or I would be like, hey, I just really don't want to be touched, or like I would, push off a hug or something and just do a dap or something. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm compromising here because I really don't want to be touched,
Yeah.
but you're like kind of forcing the issue. And now it's going to be awkward if I don't at least give you a dap. Now you're putting me in an uncomfortable position and I no longer want to be around you. So that's kind of how it worked out. Shout out to my homies though. They were great. They were just like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it. I was like, oh, thank you. But it was also kind of like shocking in a
Mm-hmm.
way for them to just so readily accept my boundary
Mm.
because I had not experienced anyone
Mm.
accepting any boundary that I tried to set without even knowing really that I was trying to set boundaries. I was just trying to make things a little bit safer for me.
Mm.
And this showed me very much who my safe people were.
Right.
So for me, that was back then, especially like starting off in teens, that was when I really started to just like, hey, I mess with people who mess with me. And
Good.
if you mess with me, you got to understand that I do have boundaries and you got to respect them.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to respect yours. And if we can't mutually respect and understand each other, then there's no reason for us to be around each other.
Honestly, you said a nice little nugget that I really want to touch a little bit more on about I'll respect your boundaries and you'll respect mine. And I want to say this to those listening and those watching right now. As you start to set those boundaries, and I know me and Jay are talking a lot about like the whole like touching, saying no, and I know there's so many other boundaries that we're going to talk about in a
So
little
many.
bit, I promise. But you have to respect people's boundaries as well. That
Mm-hmm.
whole being toxic ain't cute. We talked about it before. If you have been in your villain era or whatever, and you've been setting those boundaries with people, when people are taking your lead and they're following in your example and they start setting boundaries as well because you've made it a safe place to do so, you
Mm-hmm.
don't get to pick and choose whose boundaries you respect and whose you don't. Okay?
Ooh, say that
So,
again because people
hello,
need to know.
you
Okay.
don't get to pick and choose what boundaries get respected. If it's a boundary that you don't feel you need to set with somebody, but someone feels the need to set that with you, respect it. Okay.
Exactly.
And a big thing that hits a little close to home because it irritates me personally, but you don't always have to understand something to respect it.
Ooh.
Okay. If someone is telling you that something is making them feel uncomfortable, or they would appreciate something done in a certain manner, or they don't want to talk about something, or whatever it may be, and you don't understand for the life of you why they would feel this way. One, it's not their responsibility to explain it to you because they've already expressed how they feel. They don't have to express the psyche behind it. One.
Mm-hmm.
Two, if they do decide to express how they feel about the situation and you still, for whatever reason, don't understand it, okay, at the end of the day, you still have to respect that boundary. You still have to respect
Exactly.
what they said, regardless, because it's not for you to understand, it's for you to respect. Okay? And yeah, I might be preaching to the choir or I might be speaking to myself because, like I said, this hit a little close to home for me. But if somebody is telling you something, it's because they feel safe enough and comfortable enough to tell you that. I do not waste my breath on telling people things or setting boundaries with people I have no intention of keeping in my life.
Right.
If you are a coworker, like I said, my boundary for coworkers is don't message me outside of work hours and expect a response. If you choose to message me, that's on you. Don't ask me the next morning about it either because I didn't see it yet. Okay, I didn't even clock in yet. All right, don't ask me nothing. That's my boundary for coworkers. Also, the whole "don't touch me" thing, because you're really a stranger. Like,
No, for real. I don't
really
care if we
don't
get
touch
paid
me.
by the same institution. I don't know you. You
Hello,
don't know me
I
from a ham
don't know
sandwich.
you.
Why are you touching me?
Oh, and this just reminded me of a great thing that I have to tell you guys, because, like I said, y'all are my little besties too. So I got to be spilling tea sometimes. But we have a new coworker at my job, and my work is predominantly Hispanic. There's a nice little sprinkle of Black people in there, and there's like five white teachers, I think, and maybe like two white students. Okay.
Ah,
And the
okay.
new coworker that I have, she is also a Black woman. And I think she believes we have some type of solidarity between each other just because we're both Black women, but we're not the same type of Black woman, if that makes sense.
Mm.
I'm a very, you have to work like two times as hard to get half of what they have, and a very much, I'm setting myself and my people around me up for success. And she's a very, I'm trying to put this in a nice way. I'm finding it. I'm finding it. Um, she's a very, I'm here, I don't necessarily have to do the work as hard. You know, she's a very like breeze by, just do the bare minimum. And she thought I was going to help her out with that. And I was like, oh no. When you're working with me, here's how we're going to run things. And of course, I can't go into the specifics because,
Right,
that
right.
deals with children's files and whatnot and what I do specifically. And then it kind of gives away who she is, too. Um, but I let her know that may be how you operate when you're working with other teachers. But when we're in my classroom, this is the way we're going to operate. And if you do not like it, I have no problems filing a report to have somebody else come in here. Because what you're not going to do is put my babies at a disadvantage. All right.
Mm-mm.
And also, today, I had to let her know you touch me every single time we talk. She's one of those like gets close to you and like, you know how the teachers were doing and they like put their hand on your shoulder and they're trying to like talk to you. I'm like, you don't have to touch me to talk to me. I'm listening. She's like, oh, I'm sorry. It's just a habit. Break it.
Please. And like break it immediately.
And she kind of standing on the other side of the room, so she didn't feel the desire to touch me. And I'm like, I appreciate
Smart
that.
move. Smart
Smart
move.
move, because I already told you once. I don't often tell things twice. So I appreciate that. But yeah, like I said, when it comes to boundaries, it looks different for everybody. For the sake of today's episode, me and Jay are talking about the ones we have in common, which are saying no and telling people, don't touch me, which kind of falls into saying no. But my saying no is more like not biting off more than I can chew just because it
Mm-hmm.
would make someone else happier. But other things like, telling coworkers how to interact with you, being from up north and moving down south, because I'm also in Texas. Y'all already know that. Um, yeah. But being from up north and coming down south, they have a different way of living down here. And I have a
Definitely.
different way of living up there. And I wasn't budging on how I move. So y'all had to budge because one of us is right here. And it's not you. So, and my Houston friends know this, and my coworkers know this. But when I came down here, I was rocking a lot of boats because they have a way of speaking to each other down here that you can't talk to nobody like that up north. I it was it was
Yes,
crazy.
some of the things they say and some of the ways that they say them very much
Hmm.
get the eyebrows raised, and I be having to remind myself, I don't live that life anymore.
I do. She buried
No,
deep, deep down inside, but I
I
could
don't
pull
live
her
that life
out.
anymore.
I could pull her
Mm-mm.
out.
So that's my thing. I don't want to pull it out mainly because I know that with me, there is no there's no stopping point.
Yeah, no.
I and
You
I
you
have
need to
given
keep that one
myself
buried.
you know, I've given myself too many things to lose at this point. So absolutely
Mm-hmm.
not. I will not compromise myself or put myself in a position where I can be compromised. If some stuff
Mm-hmm.
happens, it was just meant to happen, but I'm doing everything in my power to not put myself in that situation. And that means
Absolutely.
being very clear and very much upfront about my boundaries.
That part. And that's why these episodes kind of segue together because getting out of that toxic mindset, like we both mentioned, there's a little person buried down inside of us that we used to live a type of life. We didn't live the same type of life, though. Okay. I want to make that clear for those of you that know them and those of you that know me.
We did
We
not
didn't
live the
live the
same
same
type of
type
life.
of life. Okay. But we
No.
both have pieces of us that are buried deep, deep down inside that don't necessarily need to make an appearance. That's that toxicity. That's that negativity.
Right.
That's that unhealed version of us, right?
Just know I'm
With
sweet now for a reason.
sweet now because we be setting boundaries and people be respecting them. And if you
That
don't
they do.
respect them, you're
I cut
asking
you
her
off.
to come out. I don't know.
Mm-mm. I cut you off because I'm not trying to go back to jail. No, thank you.
So when I said we didn't live the same type of life, I'm not a jailbird. Okay, I'm from the
Just want
suburbs.
to clarify those charges were all dropped. All of
Yo.
them. Okay. Well, all two of them. They were both dropped. I want to clarify that for
Mhm.
for the people in the back.
Because I know y'all have questions. If they want to do a story time later, maybe. But but yes, the different boundaries. It can be as simple as saying no, but also it could be as serious as sexual consent. Sexual consent is a boundary. It's a boundary that's a legal boundary.
Right.
Okay. So it just kind of depends. I know today, not today, was that yesterday? One of my friends, she's gonna know I'm talking about her immediately, but she was doing a favor for her mom, and her mom was bringing negativity into her space. I'm not gonna say what they were talking about because it's not y'all business.
Right.
And she kindly, I don't know if she did it kindly, but she let her mom know.
We're just gonna
Um,
assume she did it kindly today.
we're gonna assume she did it kindly, but she let her mom know, like, hey, you're not gonna be talking about that while I'm doing things for you, or you're not gonna be acting that way while, I'm doing a favor for you, because that has nothing to do with me. That's a
Right.
boundary. When it comes to family, it's really hard to set those boundaries because you feel that
Especially when you're
guilt.
so much younger than them.
Yes, you feel that guilt, and there's always this like saying that blood is thicker than water, and family's all you got at the end of the day. And of course, these are the people that you're around first. Like
Hmm.
when you're born, you're around family. You're not just fresh out the hospital mingling with the other newborns.
No.
Like, your first relationships are your family. So it
Newborn
feels
mixers.
newborn mixers, right? You're not having those. So it feels like guilt whenever you're um like saying things that might come across hurtful, but in reality you're just setting a boundary to make your own life happier. All of this goes back to living a well life. Okay, life is so short and it is so fragile. You do not want to live your entire existence pleasing other people and making yourself uncomfortable. If you can't feel safe in your own body by speaking up, using your words, or using your actions for those of us that can't speak, if you don't feel comfortable expressing in some way, shape, or form your discomfort with something, then you're bound to forever be uncomfortable. And
True.
that is such a sad life to live. Okay. And I want better for y'all. Okay. I want
Hmm.
better for me, so I changed. I want better for those around me, so I made this podcast. And hopefully it blows up one day and I can have a whole bunch of y'all on these comments talking about I started setting boundaries because nobody JR was blah 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 blah. I hope we have a whole world full of people that know how to set boundaries simply because we started talking about them a little more. I always told y'all that NYGA was going to be about the things that most people don't talk about, right? And our parents, and I'm not speaking like just our parents specifically, but I mean parents in general,
Just
people
like
who
parents in
have children.
general, yeah.
Yes, people who have children. Parents do the best that they can Some of them ain't shit, but most good parents do what they can to teach you what they know, right? But the issue is if
Yeah,
that no one taught them how to set boundaries healthfully, then you don't know how to do that either, right? Me and my
very
mom
true.
talk often about the things that she teaches me that her mom didn't teach her. And I bet her mom didn't teach her that because her mom didn't teach her that. It's a cycle, right? So the things that she's teaching me, that's knowledge that I have. And then the things that I learned throughout my own experiences, I get to pass down to hopefully when I have children, right?
Right.
And having this podcast allows me to share that now. You know, I'm not having kids for a minute. Okay. I'm not even married. These rings, they just for show. Okay. So, you know, children aren't coming in the picture for a minute. But this knowledge is something that needs to be passed down. How else are people going to learn if they're not reaching out and they're consuming literature and media and knowledge from other people who have been through what they've been through and they've gone through it different ways? Boundaries are one of those things that helps us respect other people, right? So if you get nothing else from this episode, it is okay to set boundaries. It is okay to be uncomfortable setting those boundaries. Respecting each other, that comes at any age.
Right.
Okay? So we were both at different ages. We have a 10-year gap between us. Okay. And we're still talking about boundaries to this day. We set different boundaries based off of our needs. We set them in different ways based off of our character. And we set them with different people based on the relationships that we have. And that means that everything that was talked about in this episode today, take what resonates and leave what doesn't. Okay. If you love cuddling, if you love touching, if you appreciate it and it makes you feel good when people touch on you, then maybe don't start telling people, hey, don't touch me just because Nova and JR said to. Okay. Be smart about it.
Right.
Stick to
Your
the boundaries
boundary
that
is
make
your
sense.
boundary.
Yes. So even though we gave some examples that were specific to us in this episode, that boundary can look like anything. Okay? And the principle is the same. So set those boundaries even if it feels weird. If no one is respecting those boundaries, don't pull out the little person that you just started healing,
Whoa,
okay?
Jamal, don't pull out the nine. I'm sorry, that's like one of my
Okay.
favorite clips from them.
Period. Yes, do not. Do
Yeah,
not
don't
pull
do
out
that.
the niner, okay? Simply remove yourself from that space or remove them from that space, okay? And if they're like a coworker or a family member, and they're like, you're like, oh, but no, but I can't because like I see them every day or they're at every holiday. You don't have to talk to them. There are some coworkers that I simply don't talk to just because I don't like them. Okay. It's not that they disrespected the boundary or anything. It's just I'm not very good at playing nice with people that I simply do not like. So I'm
No,
not
that's
going
fair.
to. And we work together. We see each other every single day, 5 days out of the 7. Okay. But you can minimize conversation. Okay. And if they're not respecting those boundaries, make it firm. We said
Mm.
both like really kind ways to set those boundaries. But if, for example, we're going to use the touching one again, because that's the one I'd be using the most. But say if I had that coworker the other day who decided she didn't want to stop touching me and she thought that it brought her closer to me. Simply put some bass in your voice, look them in the eye. I know eye contact is hard for some of us. Enunciate. I am telling you, stop touching me. It makes me uncomfortable. If you continue to touch me, I have no choice but to take action. You reset your boundary, you let them know how it makes you feel, and you let them know that if they continue, there will be a call to action. Okay.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying go beat them up. Okay. Because we just said we got rid of that part of ourselves. All right. I'm not saying that. Okay. I'm saying in this case, I could report her to our manager, right?
Right.
Report her to HR. She's making me feel uncomfortable. There are different ways to set boundaries if people aren't respecting them. After that, if they still aren't respecting it, leave them. Leave them be. Leave them where they at because they're not trying to heal and they're not trying to respect you. And why would you want somebody who doesn't respect you in your life? And that's just for family and coworkers, people you can't get rid of that easy. But let me tell y'all this right now. If y'all have friends, if y'all are in relationships and you're setting boundaries with them and they're not respecting your boundaries and you're still staying,
Dip, dip.
I'm looking at you
Okay.
kind of sideways because you don't respect yourself.
Mm-mm.
You don't
There's
love
one
yourself.
thing that I really do want to say about that because it's something that helped me rewire my brain in a way to stop feeling so guilty and so
Mm-hmm.
uncomfortable when I started to set those boundaries or like really setting them frequently and consistently. The relationship that you have with yourself is the longest and most important relationship that you will ever have. And if you
Mm-hmm.
don't feel good within your own spirit, one of my favorite quotes,
All
a
right.
sound soul dwells within a sound mind and a sound
Hey,
body.
hey, hey.
You cannot have that unless
Mm-hmm.
you are respecting yourself and calling people to respect you and removing those who don't. Because at the end of the day, I don't care how I came into this world. I don't care how many friends I may have. I don't care how many people I know. At the end
Mm-hmm.
of the day, this is me. This is me. That's nobody else. And
Mm-hmm.
nobody else can control how I feel or how I respond to my environment or to the world around me. So
Yep.
if I'm comfortable enough with you to tell you, hey, can you please not do this because it makes me uncomfortable? I don't necessarily have to give you a reason, but the fact that I'm giving you a reason so that you can understand that I do still want you around me,
Mm-hmm.
but I want to feel comfortable and respected in that space with you. And
Mm-hmm.
if you can't do that, as much as it might hurt me, I gotta let you go.
Gotta let them go.
So yeah,
Gotta
just
let
keep
them
that in
go.
mind. That relationship with yourself is the longest and most important you're ever gonna have. And at the end of the day, if somebody else is not going to respect that, they don't deserve to share space with you, to share energy with you.
Mm-hmm. That part.
That's my 2 cents on that.
And what a wonderful 2 cents it was. Okay,
Thank
I
you.
really hope y'all are feeling that and hearing that. You need to hear it again, play the episode back. But this has been, I hope, an enlightening episode for you guys. I hope you can see that you're never too young, never too old, never too busy, never too soft to set those boundaries and to respect people's boundaries. Because, like JR said, you're your longest relationship. People come and go all the time, but you're stuck with yourself. But for the rest of you, I hope it's a wake up call. You need to start treating yourself better, which means putting people around you that treat you better. And
Right.
as I was saying, like, if you're still around somebody that you can afford to leave and they're not respecting you, you don't respect yourself. Okay. And maybe you need to come back to this episode when you do,
That might
because
be a
it's going to
hard
fall
pill to
together.
swallow for some of y'all, but hey, think about it.
Mm-hmm. So I hope that y'all have learned a lot. I hope that y'all feel some type of way because that's what I'm trying to make y'all feel. Okay. And just remember, set those boundaries, respect those boundaries. If they don't respect them, leave them. All right. And I would love it, as always, if you guys came back to this video or to this sound and commented about how you were setting boundaries or boundaries that you started setting. Also, JR and I will be answering any questions through underneath this video. So if you have specific comments, just tag us or tag me. Y'all know the page by now, but it's underscore MANOKE underscore, or you can check out NYGA underscore podcast on Instagram now. All right. And this clips of this video will be linked there as well. So if you guys have questions, just ask them and we'll do our best to respond, or the Instagram page will do its best to respond. Until next time, I am proud of you. I am grateful for you, and continue doing the good work and fighting the good fight. All right. Bye.
Thank you so much for having me, Sib. I'll see you
Of
again next time.
course.